Now sound is okay? Now sound is okay? Reply me quickly. Okay. Vivek, see, in general, for me, what I'll always recommend, if the cutoff is supposed to be 12 question, right? Cutoff is going to be 12 question, so you must be somewhere around 15 to 16. So for me, 10 to 12 in the quant is not satisfactory. You have to raise your level till then 15 or 16. Right. So you make sure that whatever the sectional cutoff will be, you must have at least 15 to 20% extra questions or the extra marks in that. Otherwise, it will be dicey. Right. So you have to raise your level in that area where you are near to cutoff. Right. So if the cutoff is supposed to be 8 to 9 question or 9 to 10 question, then 12 to 14 is good. But if cutoff is somewhere around 10 to 12 question, then you have to target 15 to 16 or 15 to 17 question in the quant section. Right. So then you will be in the safe side. For more detail regarding quant, you should talk to Ashok sir. He will let you know in detail. Good evening, Vidushi. Good evening, everyone, and hello to welcome to everyone. So, on the last class, we was discussing about what alternative source of alternate source of finance, right? Alternate source of finance, and in alternate source of finance, we have discussed various kind of instruments which are available from crowdfunding to leasing, right? In the PPP model, or because in your syllabus they have given this topic separately, public private partnership, right? Public private partnership, PPP model. So in the PPP model, one model is kind of model where it is going to be joint venture model. Okay, joint venture model, where generally in the joint venture model, each and everything is going to be shared between private and government, right? Each and everything will be shared between government and private organization. Whereas in the other model, which is more popular, management with private and capital will be infused by government, right? So under the joint venture model, maybe they can go for what, maybe they can go for either this, where capital management, each and everything is going to be what, each and everything is going to be having a shared responsibility basis. Both private and government, both are going to have a shared responsibility. But other kind of the venture where the government, which is going to provide the necessary capital, because capital part is little bit difficult, right? So capital part is going to be infused by government, and generally private firms are lacking in what, lacking in the capital availability. So that is the strength of the government. So government will come with the strength of what, providing the capital. Fine. Land, machineries, loan, all these going to be arranged by the government. Whereas private sector is efficient in the managing the things, marketing, management, all these things. So private sector will come in that part, and you are going to have this joint venture. Another, I already told you yesterday, BOT model. BOT model, build, operate and transfer. Build, operate and transfer model, where private sector is going to build, right? Then they are going to operate, and after certain point of time, they have to go for what? Transfer the assets back to government. Whereas the new model which is proposed by the government, that is monetization national monetization pipeline. So in that, government of India, whatever the infrastructure, basically infrastructural assets like gas pipeline, right, oil pipeline, or whatever the infrastructure kind of the thing do have with the government of India, government is going to lease those assets to the private sector, so that private sector can run, operate, and if required, they can go for altercation or some you can say that, apart from running an operation, if any modification or reconstruction is required at some place, so private sector can do it, and accordingly government will compensate. So this is what government of India is having the plan, go for national monetization pipeline, right? So all these are part of what? Public private partnership. So public private partnership do come under the alternative source of finance. But if you will see your lecture plan, means the syllabus shared by RBI, so they have mentioned this alternative source of finance, plus they have mentioned this public private partnership separately. Though public private partnership, there is no need to mention it separately when you already have mentioned this topic. So public private partnership is an alternative way of getting financed, right? So that's why I just discussed with you. And the next thing which we have to discuss, that is private and social cost benefit, right? Private and social cost benefit, this is we have to discuss. Then we will move towards what? Financial inclusion part, right? So till then, now if you have any question, please ask me that question. I'll explain. I'll clarify your doubt. If you have any doubt till then, now please let me know. Any questions? BOT model means build, operate, and transfer, right? Build, operate, and transfer. So people from Uttar Pradesh, they know about Yamuna Expressway. Yamuna Expressway that was developed by JP Group. So a few years back, means 2 years back, that Yamuna Expressway was on sale. So Yamuna Expressway was on sale. Why Yamuna Expressway on sale? Because JP Group, with agreement with whom? UP government. UP government, they started developing Yamuna Expressway on the basis of build, operate, and transfer, right? Build, operate, and transfer. Operate for 40 years. So 40 years, that highway is going to be under whom? JP Group, right? JP Group is going to hold this highway for 40 years. So whatever the revenue is going to be generated by that highway in terms of toll and other things, related activities on this highway, that is going to whom? That is going to Yamuna Expressway owner, that is JP Group. Fine. So with this model, build, operate, and after 40 years, it is going back to whom? Back to the UP government. So this was the model, and on that model, Yamuna Expressway was built, right? But what happened? What JP Group has expected? This amount of revenue they are going to do what? They are going to generate from the Yamuna Expressway. Expectations you have, but the actual performance was not as per the expectation, and JP Group thought that if they are going to operate, then they may be in loss, right? So that's why JP Group, and because of other liabilities also, which JP Group was not able to fulfill, so they thought that it will be better to sell this asset to anyone who is interested to operate this project. So in the build, operate, and transfer, private firm is going to build, and then they are going to operate, and after certain point, when it is going to be, time period is going to be over, the asset will be transferred to the government. So this is build, operate, and transfer model. Fine. Now we have to say this part, that is private and social cost benefit. Private and social cost benefit. Actually, it is private cost benefit and social cost benefit. Private cost and the benefit, and social cost and benefit. So private cost, first look over the private cost and the benefit, right? So generally private cost means what? Suppose take the example of that JP Group, right? So JP Group has taken the project of what? Yamuna Expressway, right? So they took the target, the project of Yamuna Expressway. So that expressway can be built by whom? Government controlled PWD or NHAI, National Highway Authority of India, or public work departments, right? So public work department, you can give this highway to them, right? But government choose, rather than giving to them, government went for what? Private firm. Private firm, which private firm? The JP Group. So they have chosen the JP Group. So JP Group is going to do what? Is going to do the construction. Fine. So they are going to do the construction rather than Public Work Department or National Highway Authority of India. They are not going to do this. This is going to be done by the private sector firm. So private sector firm, whenever they are going to execute any project, they are always with what? Profit motive. Any private firm is going to do any work, that is always profit motive is involved. Whereas public work department or NHAI, if they are going to do, they are already what? Government organization. So their motive is not to make profit, but what? Serve the duty assigned, right? Serve the duty assigned. So if you will compare the cost for the project is going to be higher when it is going to whom? Private, right? Why? Because private is going to build, then they will operate for some years, only then they will transfer back to the government. So government is not going to earn any revenue from this highway project from the very first day. Whereas if it is going to be developed by PWD or NHAI, National Highway Authority of India, so government from very first day will start generating the revenue. But the problem with this government department is that that project is going to be what? Not going to be completed even double amount of time. Suppose you have allotted 3 years to complete that project. That project even is not going to be completed in 10 years, right? So this is the problem. The work is not going to be on time. So there will be more loss for the government. So after calculating the cost benefit, government went for what? Government went for, see, what I am trying to say that if you are calculating with this, what? Private group is going to make it, but they will charge higher. Why they will charge higher? Because they are working for the profit motive. Whereas if you are going to do this work with the PWD and NHI, your cost will be less. That is true if project is going to be executed in the given amount of time. So definitely that project must be executed by what? Must be executed by the government agencies. But what we have seen in the practice, whenever the government agencies are going to execute such kind of the project, they have taken immense amount of the time. So this immense amount of the time taken by the public work department or National Highway Authority of India, in that case, what you expected, right? A cost for this project. You have expected the cost of the project is going to be 30,000 crores if the project is going to be completed in 3 years. But if the highway is going to be constructed in 12 to 15 years, then this cost will be overrun from 30,000 crore. Maybe it is going to be 90,000 crores. Fine. So this is why government feel that it is not appropriate to go with them. It is better to go for what? Private sector under the cost benefit analysis. Fine. So this is from the government's perspective. Government think in that manner. So that's why it's better to give project to whom. This is the government's point of view regarding private cost benefit analysis. Now the project is given to whom? Project is given to private firm. Now, private firm is also going to do what? Private firm is also going to do the cost benefit analysis for this project. So the private firm is going to do this cost benefit analysis. And while doing this cost benefit analysis, the private firm is going to completely ignore social cost. They are going to ignore the social cost. What is social cost? Anyone who is interested to explain about social cost? What is social cost? Anyone? No one. Acha. Okay. So suppose that this is our coastal line, and uh, we do not have any big steel plant in India. I'm talking about 1970s and 80s. By 1970s and 1980s, India do have many steel plants, but there was a no such a plant which is very near to coastal line, right? Coastal line. Why? Because if the steel plant is near coastal line, then it is going to be what? More export oriented, more export oriented, and the export cost is going to be cheaper. So suppose we have what? Steel plant here. So the steel which is manufactured now, it is have to move to where? Port. And from port it can be what? It can be sent to China, Singapore, Australia, anywhere. So you have to move that heavy manufactured good from here to here. But if the port is here or the steel plant is nearby the port, then the cost of transporting the good, manufactured good, as well as raw material is going to be very less, right? So that's why Vizag steel plant, was formulated by the government in 1980s, and they started the construction of Vizag steel plant in the city of Visakhapatnam. Right. So steel city or steel plant is being created. But when you are going to construct a steel plant, right? Steel plant is one of the biggest plant of any sector. So it's the biggest, or you can say that is steel, cement, they are generally considered as a mother industry, right? So steel plant need big space. So first of all, you have removed the entire forest area, right? So you have removed what? Forested area. Fine. So means you have given some damage to what? Environment by removing those forests. Now you did worst after removing those forests. Now you are going to establish a plant which heavily going to use what? Coal. Coal means it is going to produce what? Too much carbon dioxide. Right. So that carbon dioxide is going to impact our what? Environment, and it is also going to increase greenhouse gas emission in the area. So what you are thinking, we may have a steel plant so that our exports can be increased, right? So you are just calculating what? Monetary cost and benefit, right? Monetary cost and benefit. But this steel plant is going to have a great social impact on the area's environment, right? Area's environment, area's overall climate, area's overall pollution level, right? So coal ash, now greenhouse gases, all these things are going to impact local area people in terms of pollution, as well as in terms of what? Rising level of carbon dioxide emission for overall country. Fine. So you are not calculating those impact. You are not calculating those impact. So those impacts are generally known as social cost. And social cost are never visible. It is never visible on balance sheet. So it is never visible on the balance sheet. Why? Because when we are constructing the steel plant in the Visakhapatnam, so what is going to be visible there? What is the cost of land acquisition? What is the cost of putting the heavy machineries there? Right. So all these cost is going to be mentioned in the balance sheet, but how this CO2 emission is going to impact our environment, it is nowhere mentioned. Right. So social cost is generally invisible in the balance sheets. Right. And that's why generally people do not care about the social cost. However, in the recent years, because of the rising pollution level, rising greenhouse gases emission, climate change, all these things, so social cost over the time, it gained significance. It gained significance. Similarly, apart from this means this point of the social cost, sometimes what? Sometimes suppose that it is a forested area, and in that forested area, tribal people, tribal people are living since ancient ages. Fine. Now you have to relocate them. So tribal peoples generally they have own customs, culture, and when they are forced to move from their area to another area where they can feel the cultural shock, right? So cultural shock is going to create a too much problem for those people who are going to be relocated from their land to another place, and to that place where they are going to be relocated, that place also is going to have some cultural shock. Why? Because they have never seen such kind of the customs and things which tribal people are going to do in their area. So that is kind of maybe some kind of the social tensions will be also there, right? So this is why this social aspect, right? Environmental impact and migration related impact, these are generally never on the discussion board when we are supposed to start a project, right? Or start or execute a job project. Fine. But the social cost is always about all these impacts. Fine. So this is what we call social cost. And because of the rise of what? Issues related what? Issues related to climate change, right? Issues related to climate change, pollution related issues, they have given more significance to what? Social cost. So for now, these days, any company or organization which is going to construct some infrastructure related project, right? So first of all, there is a classification of all the projects on the basis of how they are going to do. One is greenfield. Just give me a second. Hello. Huh. Something in public favor. Vishwas Arya, good evening. Vrishali, good evening. You are late in today's class. Venkatram sir, why government of India going to privatize Vizag steel plant? So Venkat, you are from Vizag, or you have some sentiments with respect to steel plant? Why you are asking this specific question? Hmm. If you want to know why government is planning to privatize steel plant, whether it is Vizag steel plant, maybe Vizag steel plant is just a beginning. Later on, government is going to what? Government is going to sell all these steel plants. The one reason I just want to means I'm not going to explain, but you can find on your own. What you have to do, just see, just see the capacity of steel plant, right? The size of the steel plant owned by government, size of steel plant, right? Area plus area plus number of working people. Okay, area plus number of working people, size of the steel plant, then production capacity in metric ton, right? On annual basis. Fine. So just collect this data. Just collect this data for whom? For first, collect this data for government owned, then go for private owned. You will get the answer. You will get the answer. A tiny size of the steel plant is almost making the same amount of production capacity in a year in comparison to whom? The public sector plants. But if you will see the number of people are working there, right? Number of the people working there in the government run steel plant, that is even 50 times more than the private steel plant. So despite putting a lot of resources there, our production capacity of the government run steel plants is very poor. Though they are doing what? They are having huge production, but just have a comparative study, right? The size of the steel plant and their production capacity, things are going to be crystal clear for you. Means it's clearly showing that it's a management related issue. Fine. And that management related issue is going to be solved only when it is going to be in the private sector. And overall, generally, government should not do the business, right? Means the production activity. It's not a domain of the government. Government domain is what? Working for economic, or in the better word, welfare. So welfare should be the target of the government, right? Welfare and stimulating the growth should be the target of the government rather than doing the production activity on its own. You are an organization which can enable or facilitate better production activity, provide the better working environment to the people. Maybe you are going for the private, but at the same time, you must secure what? The workers' right. Fine. Their rights and their social benefits, all these things, government have to do what? Government have to make it sure that these should be properly implemented, and that kind of the model is very successfully implemented in the western countries, right? Whereas the socialist model, wherever it is implemented, it is failed. Do not have this false perception regarding China. China is a socialist economy. China is not a socialist economy. China is only socialist country with capitalism. So, in the better word, that is state owned capitalism. State itself is a capitalist, right? So do not have this false perception that China is a communist country or communist. They are only at the political level. At economic level, they are like a simple capitalist. Most of the big companies, Huawei, right? The leading company in the 5G, MI, all these companies, they are what? Oppo, Vivo, all these companies are the Chinese origin company. So there is no state-owned kind of what socialism is there. The state-owned capitalism is there. So capitalism is a successful philosophy in terms of increasing the growth and in terms of also providing the welfare to the people, right? So privatization is not a government's what you can say that government's choice, right? It is not the government choice. It is now a need for the government. We have tried with this socialist kind of the economic system since last 50-55 years, but what we have targeted, it was never achieved, right? So it's time to move on. This is why. सर 2017 to 2018 तक में क्वांट में हाईएस्ट. भाई प्लीज ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड, I am not a kind of person who have sound knowledge of all these things, right? I tell you very clearly and honestly, I do not have such kind of the analytical skills in this tier 1 examination, right? So please ask the expert and do not want to create any false kind of the perception regarding me. That's why I'm telling, please ask this question to Ashok sir, not me, because I'm not very good in that area. Wherever I'm good, you can ask me, I will explain. Fine. So this is why I'm telling you again and again. Okay. Please try to understand my limitation. I am a normal human being, and I have a time limitation, so I do not have a time to go and search or research in that area. Right? So this is my problem. Please try to understand. Fine. So this is why government want to go for privatization, right? So do not think that the privatization is going to be implemented only by these political parties who are in the power right now. Privatization was started, right, from 1992 onwards, and it is going to be remain there in the Indian economy. What is the change will be there? What the political party which are in power right now, maybe they are going with the rate of, suppose their rate of privatization is 10%. So if the other party who was in the power, for example NDA and UPA was relatively slow. UPA was little bit slow in terms of what? Privatization. And that slowness is not because they do not support the privatization. They are not able to implement those policies in the very rigorous manner. And for that reason, they lost the power in 2014. Fine. So they lost the power because their policy implementation was having a lackluster way. So that's why people get frustrated and they voted out that political party. And they learned their lesson, right? They learned their lesson because now they are desperate to come back to the power. So they already learned their lesson, and when they will come back to the power, they learn this thing: what we have to accelerate the policy decision making process. Decision making process, policy implementation process, we have to what? We have to increase it. Because of that, the party who is in the power right now, because one of the main reason why they are in the power. Fine. So whenever the UPA will come back to power again, they are also going to have with the same pace of what? Privatization or going forward towards the economy. Maybe some here and there changes will be there. Maybe they are going to scrap this Niti Ayog, and they are going to come back again with a different kind of structure of planning commission, more or less having the same feature what Niti Ayog have, but they are going to change the name and they are going to plug in their own institution. That might be possible, but don't think there will be too much change at the policy implementation level. Government in India is having a kind of, means all the political parties except few communist parties, all the political parties have this mindset ki in order to accelerate the governance, right? This is the funda right now. Minimum government, maximum governance. So when you say the minimum government, means government have to limit their role, power and functions. So government is only going to focus on what? Welfare related thing, rather than going to be involved directly or indirectly in the production related activities. Fine. There will be no central government owned company or public sector company. Fine. So it is not going to be there in the future, or whatever the assets they have, either they are going to what? Monetize, or they are going to do what? They are going to sell it. Yes, Raj, I'm good. Okay, so come back to this point. We are discussing about the social cost. So greenfield project and brownfield project. Greenfield project and brownfield project means what? Greenfield projects are those projects where when you are going to establish an industry or infrastructure project where there is a forested land or there is no industry there. There is no industry there, and you are going to have what? Industry or infrastructure, then we will call it as a greenfield project, where where there is already an industry and you are going to remove that one and you are going to construct the new one. These projects are known as what? Brownfield projects, right? So if you will look from the cost benefit and economic growth analysis, if you are going to see the greenfield project and brownfield project from the economic growth perspective, right? So one is economic growth perspective. Other is what? Other is social cost perspective. So when you are looking what? Greenfield projects, right? When you are looking greenfield projects, so they always what? They always very good for this one. They always very good for this one, and this shows how country is rapidly growing. So as many as greenfield project India do have, it is showing how India is rapidly moving towards high economic growth. Whereas at the same time, it is bad for what? It is bad for social cost perspective, because as many greenfield project, as many as forested area is going to be destructed, more and more carbon emissions, carbon footprint will be there. So greenfield project, they are very good from the economic growth perspective, but they are very bad from the social cost benefit perspective. Fine. So in this way, we have to analyze the social cost. Fine. And now, now the social cost related issue, they emerge at very large level, and even during the conference of party talks, environment social governance. Environment social governance emerge as one of the big topic. Under this, when a country or a company is going to do some activities, fine, so we are going to estimate their environmental and social governance. Example, a company want to introduce, means company want to list themselves, a company want to list themselves in a stock exchange. So under the red herring prospectus and all the formalities which is going to be uh, issued by the stock exchange or the Securities and Exchange Board of India, whatever the terms and conditions they are going to put forward, apart from those terms and conditions, they are also going to check, they are also going to check the status of environmental and social governance. How? When company want to list themselves in a market, right, they have to fulfill all terms and conditions regarding Company Act, SEBI rules and regulations, and that capital market, sorry, this stock exchange related things. But apart from that, you are also going to be checked on the basis of your environmental governance. If a company is a very polluting company, right, company is a very polluting company, then maybe in the future stock exchange or Securities and Exchange Board of India, either they are going to refuse them to list in the stock exchange, or they are going to say that ki first compensate the social cost. Compensate the social cost means whatever the carbon emission you are doing, the same amount of forested area should be constructed by you. Means go and take some land, and on that land you have to construct what? You have to construct a forested area, so that whatever the emission you are doing at one place, that should be compensated with another place. Fine. So these are the things you have to do. So environment and social governance. But there are some brilliant people. There are some brilliant people. For example, uh, RIL, Reliance Industries Limited. They have Asia's fifth biggest refinery in Jamnagar. World's fifth largest refinery and Asia's third biggest refinery at Jamnagar. Right. So refinery, you know that it's a polluting infrastructure. Means refinery is going to pollute too much. So government said that you are going to pollute, so that's why you have to compensate. Compensate how? You have to go for forestation of nearby area. So Reliance said fine. So this is their refinery complex, and nearby area they have to do what? The nearby area they have to go for forestation. Fine, forestation. So Reliance said that fine, we will do it. We will forestate that area. And you know what they did? They planted mango trees. They planted the mango trees. First, they have changed the soil of that area, right? That is more conducive soil for the tree plantation of mangoes. So when they started this thing, changing the soil of the nearby area, they have not made it clear ki what kind of the trees they are going to plant there, right? They have not cleared, they have not mentioned ki what kind of the trees they are going to plant, but they started changing the soil and they started spending huge amount of money. 50 crore rupees they have spent to change the soil, and that was a kind of joke for other people ki Reliance people are getting mad and they are just changing the soil, right? But after the changing the soil quality, they have checked the soil quality and the soil was conducive for mango plantation, so they planted the mango trees and they are exporting those mangoes to different countries, earning the money, right? So there are the people who always find an opportunity even in the situation of crisis. Fine. So this is the classic example how you always create an opportunity. But the point of discussion here is if you are harming the environment, right? If you are harming the environment, then you must have to compensate. Apart from that, it is under this environmental and social governance, it is also going to be look on the track record of a company in terms of violation of human rights, in terms of how they are providing the social security umbrella to their employees. So all these things are going to observe under economic and social governance, right? Economic and social governance, sometimes it is known as economic, social, and corporate governance. Fine. So all these things are going to be implemented under the social cost thing. Okay. But it's like land digging at Mumbai while filling potholes at Himalaya. Hypocrisy. It's your viewpoint. They have nothing. They did nothing wrong, and mango trees are equally capable of providing the clean air like any other tree, right? So it's your viewpoint, whatever you want to say, you are completely free. That's why they are Ambanis. Okay, so I hope this social cost thing is clear. What is social cost and why the social cost is important? So I have explained all these things, social cost, public private partnership. You already have PDF in your course lecture, right? Because these topics are not very concept intensive. These topics are just you need a briefing. I'm just giving the briefings. Rest of the details and detailed things are facts related things, and other details are available in your notes, PDF notes, which is available at Crack Grade B, right? Go there and read those one. I have just created a platform for you so that you can comfortably read those one. And if you have any doubt, you can come back to me. I will explain those doubts. But I hardly feel that there will be any doubt because whatever the basic things is required, I already explained with respect to these topics. Whereas some topics are concept intensive, right? Like monetary policy, national income, or topic like budgeting and taxation. All these topics are what? They are concept intensive, right? So I was taking each and everything there. But here, what is my approach? My approach is I will provide you what the platform. You can go then read those PDFs which are available in your course. अंबानी ने अंबा लगाया अंबा मंगो in Marathi. See, regarding Ambani's, I'll let you know one thing, right? For especially Dhirubhai Ambani, he started his business at that time when doing a business in India at large level was almost impossible. Was almost impossible. That was an era of Indira Gandhi, and even you can those people who are preparing for the civil services also they can understand more in that context. Indira Gandhi changed the constitution preamble, and in the preamble, she mentioned socialist republic. So, socialist term was added in the preamble of the constitution. What it means that the government and constitution insisted on going for more socialist kind of the system, right? Socialist kind of the system means doing a business in India by the private person is going to be almost impossible, right? So Inspector Raj was there, right? Not our Raj who is in chat box, Inspector Raj, right? Means each and everything for anything you need approval. For everything you need approval, we have moved towards the single window clearance, but at the time you need each and everything get cleared by the inspector of that particular department. So that's why Inspector Raj, Lal Fita Shahi, right? You have to go different department for getting an approval, right? So these are the kind of the system was created, and getting the loans from bank it is almost impossible because RBI was having 15% CRR and 40% somewhere around SLR. So bank technically have only 45% left with themselves in order to what? Lend to the private people. Right. So lending the private person is was very difficult. So that was the reason why the 19 till the 1990s, if you have old people in your family and they are of that era, right, that they are of that era, they are never going to ask you to go for bank loan, because that was an era of their time. People will go and take the loan from bank only when they are almost finished financially, right? And many people have lost each and everything after taking loan from the bank because banks are charging very high interest rate. So that was in India at that point of time. So in that point of time, he started a business and he ran his business successfully. But in order to run the business successfully at that point of time, you can't do it just honestly following each and every rules and regulations set by the government of India. So government of India, state governments, they have manipulated the rules so that private person cannot do the business. So what he did, he also started exploiting those rules and regulations in order to do his business. Fine. So he did his business, and even till then 1997, RIL was zero tax paying company. They were zero tax paying company. In the name of corporation tax, they are not paying any tax to the government, and they are not doing some kind of the डकैती नहीं डाल रहे थे वो. They are just exploiting the poor rules and regulations formulated by the government of India, right? So we have Tatas who have always a very high reputation, right? Very high reputation. But another part of the story is Tata have started their business in the British era, right? So when India got independence, they already have a particular set and established base to run their business, right? So in 1947, they have not started with zero. Fine. Whereas the Dhirubhai Ambani, he started with the zero. I'm not saying that he always went for fair practices. He manipulated a lot of things, and government learned his lesson and gradually changed the things. For example, in the context of zero tax paying company, it was Arun Shourie, right? Arun Shourie who highlighted this thing. I hope you have seen that movie Guru, right? So in that movie, the person who is playing the role of journalist, he was Arun Shourie. At that time, he was an editor in Indian Express, and he exposed Reliance ki how Reliance is being a zero tax paying company, and government tax officials, they know that, and still they are not doing anything. So then it become a big issue in the parliament, and then government has introduced minimum alternative tax. So it was not like in 1997 Reliance become a zero tax paying company. Reliance was zero tax paying company for last almost 10 to 12 years. Government had not taken anything. When it was exposed by the media people, then government took certain actions. Fine. So this is why sometimes maybe you feel that he's a cheater or whatever, but if the rules and regulations are set in such a manner, do not allow the fair play, right? So we have created a rules and regulations which clearly in my favor. I and you are going to play the game. Fine, I and you are going to play the game, and I already set the rules and regulations of the game so that I can win. Okay, so I have manipulated the rules and regulations. Now you are going to exploit the rules and regulations made by me, and by exploiting the loopholes of that rules and regulations, and you won. Then who is right and who is wrong? Right? So it's a what? It's a debatable issue. But he did the business in India at that time. So that's why, as a business person, he is regarded very high on the business community, right? Again, I'm not going to say that he's a good person or a bad person, but he's a good businessman. But whereas if you will see the Tatas, they always have very high reputation as a company in the public domain also. Not only just in the business domains, he also have a very good reputation. Not just about the Ratan Tata, all the Tata industries, they follow some basic minimum way of doing the business, right? So if there was a Tata, then maybe that's why Tata said that we do not want to enter in the refining business. Tata is a kind of company who have money, they can enter in the refining business. But they didn't went for that refining business. They always went for their areas only. They went for the technology sector, but they didn't went for what? Similarly, Reliance. At, do you think Reliance do not have a capacity to establish company like Infosys right now? They have huge amount of money. They can establish their infotech company, but they didn't went for. Fine. So every business firm have their own business ethics, and they will follow because they feel that what we are following, that is right. Fine. Okay. Enough discussion on it. Now, uh, we did this part. We did this part. We did this part. Now we have to move where? Financial inclusion. Nowadays, India again becoming a capitalist type of economy. Social welfare at present was shown as a burden to government, and people are threatened. If subsidies and social welfare continued, India will be. Acha, tell me one thing, right? People talking about the subsidies, right? So subsidies is for those people who are incapable, right? But the question is, who are incapable? Because they do not have access to resources, that's why they are incapable. Or you just want to remain incapable so that you should not need to do anything, and everything will be provided by the government of India free of cost. You need not to do any hard work. So do you think that they are also entitled for the subsidies? They are entitled for the subsidies. People are taking subsidy of LPG, and they are using those LPG cylinder to run their car, and they are abusing government. Government is not giving the subsidy, our government is reducing the subsidy, and they are running their vehicle on what? LPG cylinder provided by the government on the subsidy. So government has given that cylinder on the subsidy for purpose of what? To cook the food, number one. And that subsidy is for poor people who cannot afford it. Not for everyone. Everyone is not entitled. So it's, I mean, subsidy is not a kind of your right. Subsidy is a kind of thing which should be provided to those people who are in needy. And this is the biggest problem with the socialist kind of the system. Once you are going to provide each and everything, nobody is willing to work. Nobody is willing to work. If government is going to give you 40,000 or 70,000 rupees salary in monthly basis, are you going to prepare for this exam? Never. Never. No one is going to prepare for this government job exams. If government is going to start what? Giving Berozgari Bhatta, somewhere around 70, 80,000 monthly basis, if government is going to give, are you going to prepare for this exam? Never. Okay, then now we have to discuss another government focused area, that is financial inclusion. And this financial inclusion is an important topic, especially for what? Especially for descriptive part. Especially for the descriptive part, it is very important because it is not just a focus area of what? Government, but it is also very focused area of RBI. So if you will see the from the government perspective, government become more vocal for financial inclusion from 21st century. If you will see the government intention to go for financial inclusion, government was not very keen or very focused for the financial inclusion. Fine. But RBI, since its inception, they have taken the task of what? Financial inclusion. Gradually, over the time, when India went for more economic growth, then government realized that if financial inclusion will be there, right? If the financial inclusion will be there, then the delivery of deliverables, right? What government want to give to the people, right? What government want to give the people in terms of help or in terms of welfare or in terms of assistance. So if people are financially included, then it is easier for the government to transfer those benefits to the needy people. Fine. So when government understood this thing, and government understood this thing little bit late, though RBI since beginning, right, especially post LPG reforms, RBI is consistently trying to pursue government that this is one of the most important area where government need to focus, and that is also going to help the accelerate the growth and poverty alleviation and providing the social sector benefits to the people of India. So RBI is continuously pushing this agenda, but government was not very keen or government was not very keenly interested. However, from 2007 and 8, government has started showing more interest in that. Fine. Now, the Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister, he is keenly interested to integrate what? Integrate financially all the people, right? To make system more efficient. So that's why under the current Prime Minister, this scheme of financial inclusion was accelerated. So it's not like that कि Manmohan Singh was not interested. Manmohan Singh was interested and he also taken the initiative. Actually, under him, this financial inclusion came to the main policy decision board and policy implementation board. Before him, it was never on the main policy board of the government of India. Government of India never focused too much on the financial inclusion. But since Dr. Manmohan Singh came to the picture, he put that thing on the main policy board. And when Mr. Modi came to the power, he take it as what? One of the important thing which have to be implemented in our country properly. Fine. So this is why financial inclusion is one of the best thing in India over last 1.5 decade. Fine. But some people have very limited understanding regarding the financial inclusion. What they feel that ki just having a bank account, because initially it was like that ki having a bank account or having access to the account facilities, that is financial inclusion. And in fact, initially when government was focusing on the financial inclusion, government was also looking at that target only, to provide the bank accounts to all the people. Fine, but that was the first thing, which is the initiating thing for the financial inclusion, right? Sir, is it true that people prepare for government job to get subsidy salary? Don't work, just ask for the salary. For the same work in the private job, only one third paid. Yes, this is truth. This is truth. See the people who are working in the private sector bank and see the people who are working in the government bank. See the people who are working in the private coaching, not coaching industry, not in the coaching industry, but those people who are teaching in the private schools and those people who are teaching in the government school. Look at the amount of the effort made by who? Made by a private teacher in the private school and the effort made by the government school teacher. Right. The difference is very means if somebody is part of that family where the government teacher or private teacher is there, no need to take it as an offensive. But that is the hard fact. Right. That is a hard fact. My father is also was a government employee. He retired few years back, so he always tell that he is always in the favor of privatization because he know that the government people do not work properly and they get the huge amount of salary, right? So till then you are having all these things, you always want to enjoy, but this is the hard fact: the private sector work very hard and get less pay, whereas the government sector, they less they do not work as hard in comparison to the government sector, but they are well enough paid. So this is the hard fact. Even in the private coaching industry, I'll tell you the truth. In the private coaching industry, if you are going and ask for work, then you will be exploited. And if people are going to come to you and they will offer you to work, then they also get this opportunity to exploit. I have seen those people. They started their career and the private coaching institute, and they are always looking कि यार कुछ हो तो बताना, and at a point of time they become star, right? So it's always like who will get the opportunity, they will try to go for exploiting that opportunity. It's a human nature. अरे बस हो गया, ये गवर्नमेंट और प्राइवेट वाला डिबेट खत्म करो. टेल मी व्हाट इज फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन, and don't tell me just providing the bank account. It's not just a limitation, it's a very basic thing about the financial inclusion. How you are going to explain financial inclusion? Explain financial inclusion. This kind of the debate, private versus government, it's kind of a debate, a time pass debate, right? So we are not here to do this time pass. Just a fraction of time to change the topic, that was fine, but no need to involve here. Subjective objective kuch nahi. It's not subjective objective. Just tell me the what is financial inclusion. Explain what is financial inclusion. Building a strong India, stack a step of financial inclusion. Okay. Anyone else? What is financial inclusion? What is financial inclusion? Financial inclusion means that financial products and services like banking, insurance, market investment at their doorstep are easy to access. Access to the banking facilities, access to the loan credit facilities, to that for subsidy access to insurance product. Okay, bring mass in the mainstream of government benefit schemes. That is, yes, that is also one of the reason why government want the financial inclusion. Okay. Anyone else who is interested to let us know what is the financial inclusion? For the purpose of achieving most of the SDG goals like poverty, education, health. Okay. Okay. Good. So see, welfare is one of the most important work of a government organization. Government as an organization is responsible for welfare of people, right? Of people's welfare, government is responsible. So what welfare is consist of? Providing proper health, education, services, right? All these things comes under the category of what? Comes under the category of welfare. So government was more and more focused on providing those things, right? Providing those things. So government is an agency, right? Government is an agency and have what? Ministries, and from ministries they have department, and these departments are having what? Organizations, right? Organizations, organization one, two, like they have different organizations, and these organizations are doing what? They are providing those benefits to people, right? So the connection between people and the connection between government and connection between people have to go through these many of the filters. In fact, I have mentioned the organizations at ground level. After this ground level organization, there are some middle level organization. Then they are going to report their head office, and from head office, it is going to be the department. From department to ministries, and ministries to government. So, in the real time, what government is doing, we are not able to assess, right? Because information is coming in what? After many of blocks, government is able to receive those information very late. So that is why there is an issue of what? Proper effective implementation of the government policies. Over the time, when technology has enabled government to go for using of information communication technology, right? So government thought that okay, if ICT, information communication technology, is allowing us, then through this information communication technology, government and people can be connected directly. And in this connection, for the purpose of what? Welfare. For the purpose of welfare, this information communication system can be widely used, right? And the main thing related to welfare is what? Providing the monetary benefits directly, or you can avail those benefits provided by the government not to directly to the people but to that, but for example, hospital. So government is providing the health insurance to the people, so that health insurance people can avail from the hospitals by getting admitted there, and treatment will be there. Fine. So rather than just providing the money, government is ensuring their life so that they can go to the hospitals whenever it is required. So for all these things, it is very important to add those people under this information communication technological network. And because this information communication technological network is for the purpose of welfare, and this welfare is going to happen by directly transferring the money or transferring that money to those organizations which are involved for the purpose of what? For the purpose of welfare. Fine. So that's why to add those welfare organizations, right? Connect the people and the government through a platform, and that platform, the best platform is going to be the financial platform. Financial platform. So that financial platform must be having information communication technology enabled. So that's why we called it as a what? Financial inclusion. So financial inclusion, so that with the help of ICT, people will be connected financially. Then we will transfer all those benefits directly to the people wherever it is required, and sometimes to those organizations which are providing the benefits to the people. Right. So this is the main objective behind going for what? Financial inclusion. So when the information technology or information communication technology was not so popular, it doesn't mean that when these information communication technology become started getting gaining the popularity from 1980s onwards. So before 1980s, government was not trying for the welfare. No, it's not true. Government was even trying for welfare of the people even then, right? But directly connecting to the people was not there. For example, that priority sector lending, right? Going for lead bank scheme. So in the lead bank scheme, government was trying to connect the people with the bank. Government was trying to connect the people with the bank. Now the motive of government is not just to connect the people with the bank, but the motive of the government is connecting the people with the bank and with the governance part of the government also. Many times you can see that a lot of messages directly from the government of India is coming on your mobile phones, right? Even some messages are coming from the election department. How they are getting your data, right? So the reason is we want to add in the direct governance to you. So financial inclusion is not just limited to providing the financial benefits only. Financial inclusion also help the government to collect the data and provide the information in the very rapid way. So if you are financially connected with the government, financial inclusions is avoid means available for you to connect with the government. So other benefits are also going to be available at ease. So financial inclusion is not just a kind of the thing which connect financially to the financial organization, but it also help for other things like social benefits, right? Like electoral benefits. All these things are going to be part or can be utilized on the platform of financially included platform. So that's why it's very important. Fine. So this is the reason why government was interested, had shown the more interest in the financial inclusion. Before ICT, there are many schemes like lead bank scheme. Government went for the priority sector lending. In fact, priority sector lending is still there. Lead bank scheme is there, but those are not very effective in today's time. The more effective way is what? Directly providing the benefits like benefit transfer, giving the subsidies into the direct person's account. Earlier, subsidy was not provided in such a manner. Now, the direct benefit transfer is being there. So, government is not going to give what? For example, in the case of what? In the case of this LPG cylinder, right? So, what was the earlier position? Just giving an example, right? Don't consider as a real cost. Just consider as an example. Suppose that the real cost of cylinder is 900 rupees, right? 900 rupees. So just go with the earlier model. So the earlier model, what government was saying that, so for all oil marketing companies, for oil marketing companies, government is saying that ki you have to sell those cylinders on the subsidized price. So these companies have to sell these cylinders on the subsidized price. Suppose that the subsidy offered by the government is of 300 rupees. So oil marketing company have to sell the cylinder at the cost of how much? 600 rupees. They are selling at the price of 600 rupees to the people. Fine. So suppose in a year, all oil marketing companies sold 100 crore cylinders. They sold 100 crore cylinders in a year. So they sold 100 crore cylinders in a year at the price of what? At the price of 600 rupees. And government told that give the subsidy of how much? 300. So price was 900, but they are selling at the price of what? 600. So they sold how much? 100 crore cylinders they sold. Now, because they sold lower price after providing the subsidy. So what will be the subsidy bill? 300 rupees. 300 rupees. And how many cylinders were sold? Total, suppose 100 crore cylinders were sold. So subsidy bill going to be how much? How much subsidy bill is going to be produced by oil marketing company to government? How much subsidy bill they are going to give to the government? On each cylinder, subsidy was 300 and oil marketing companies sold 100 crore cylinders. So what do you think? How much amount? How much amount oil marketing company is going to charge on government for this subsidy? Total subsidy. No one want to give the answer. Array, 300 rupees on per cylinder. Total number of cylinder is how many? 100 crore cylinders. Each cylinder is having how much? 300 rupees subsidy. Then total amount will be 30,000 crores. I was waiting this answer because answer is not 30,000 crores. Answer is not 30,000 crores. Answer will be 30,000 crores plus interest payments on subsidy. Now, why interest payments? Interest payment is why? Because this 900 rupees is the cost of LPG cylinder put forward by the company, right? So you know that market price is equal to factor cost plus indirect taxes, or I'll write here. You know that what market price is equal to factor cost plus indirect taxes minus subsidy. So here market price was 600 rupees, factor cost is X, indirect taxes is Y, and subsidy is how much? 300, right? So factor cost plus indirect taxes is going to be what? X plus Y is going to be 900 rupees. Suppose indirect taxes are 100. So X is going to be what? 800 rupees. So the factor cost means cost paid by a company to import LPG from foreign countries, right? So companies have to pay in advance. So LPG company or oil marketing company, they are paying money in advance to whom? To the exporters. So they are paying for their import of LPG to India, right? and each and every expenditure is being done in advance, but they are going to get that money which they are spending at the end of the year, but they have to make an advance payment. So they have to borrow the money to make an advance payment, get the LPG, then distribute to whom? Public. So they are what? They are borrowing the money. After borrowing that money, they are importing the LPG, and then they are assembling it and they are providing to the people. And government is saying that keep provide the LPG cylinder to the people at what? At subsidized price, 300 rupees subsidies. But company have to pay this 300 rupees in advance. So that company has paid interest rate on this 300 rupees. So when they are going to take this money from the government, they are going to do what? They are going to charge some interest rate. Even maybe that interest rate will be 1% only. Still, you have to pay how much? 300 crores government. So that is why what you did, you went for direct benefit transfer of the subsidy. Now LPG company can sell that cylinder at the price of 900 rupees. Why? Because government is transferring this 300 rupees to the account of the people. Fine. So the money is immediately being transferred to whom? Oil marketing company. So there will be no interest payment will be burden on the government. So this is why direct benefit transfer. So but for having such kind of the thing, people must have the bank account. People must have the bank account. So that's why the financial inclusion is required. And in order to transfer the money quickly, we need what? We need support of information communication technology. So information communication technology has played a very important role in the financial inclusion, because it's not like that ki government don't know this thing is happening in year 1980. Government was providing the subsidy at that year also. Government was providing subsidies in 1990 also. Even government was providing this subsidy in 2007 also. But by that time, we have not financially included all those people so that we can go for this direct benefit transfer. So for going this direct benefit transfer, we must include the people in the financial domain. So this is why the financial inclusion is very important, and various schemes started by the government of India. But the recent one, which was PM JDY, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, right? So that Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana was one of the successful scheme to add the people on this board to provide them a bank account. Now, the olive branch of this financial inclusion, that is what? The financial inclusion, and the olive branch means what? First, you have started giving the subsidy. Now you are providing health benefits, you are providing other benefits. All these things you are trying to provide them, right? Because people are financially included with the banking system. So it was started with what? Account. But now, in today's world, it is like this: access to what? Access to credit, then access to contingency, access to wealth creation. So the access to credit, right? The access to credit was a primary objective, right? Access to the credit for the primary objective. Then you went for this contingency plan, you have went for wealth creation plan, retirement savings, buffer savings, insurable contingencies, business livelihood, emergency loans, housing loans, consumer loans, saving investment, all these things can be there. Now government do have what? Government has went for retail direct scheme, means you can purchase the government securities through the RBI. Right. So if a person is well connected in the financial inclusion system and he is living in the village, but he have the bank account and he is aware of that scheme, he can directly connect with who? Government. So now ये कौन सा कलर आ गया? Now, common man. Now, common man through this retail direct scheme, they can participate in government borrowings. So, how this common man is able to participate in the government borrowing scheme? Because of RBI's retail direct scheme. But to access to retail direct scheme, the person must have a bank account, right? So that bank account is came with what? Financial inclusion. So this financial inclusion started with what? Credit. Then it went to for contingency plan, retirement saving schemes like NPS, National Pension Scheme, right? Buffer savings, like any other saving scheme provided like PPF. Earlier for PPF, you have to go to where? You have to go to the post office. But right now, you can open the PPF account at the click. At the single click, you can open the PPF account in the bank while accessing your internet banking, right? So PPF is going to be more popular. NPS is going to be more popular if people are properly included financially. So more people can be part of all these things. So this is why the financial inclusion getting or gathering more and more importance day by day. हर्ष अग्रवाल अशोक सर कह रहे थे कि मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट स्कीम्स की वीडियो आएंगी, अभी तक नहीं आए। सर सेबी में पूछा था इससे राइटिंग फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन पर। मनजोत सिंह, ओके। अरे मुझे पता होता अगर सिडबी में, अच्छा ओके, सिडबी में पूछा था इससे राइटिंग फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन पर, ओके। हर्ष आई विल सेंड योर मैसेज टू अशोक सर, ओके। मतलब कहाँ से तुम लोग अचानक से एकदम टॉपिक चेंज कर देते हो? राइट, यहाँ पे मैं फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन बता रहा हूँ, तुम दूसरी जगह पे थे और अचानक से पता नहीं आया कि तुमने बम फोड़ दिया कि सर मोस्ट इंपोर्टेंट स्कीम्स की वीडियो आएंगी, अभी तक नहीं आए। कब बोला था सर ने? व्हेन ही सेड दैट? Harsh, please let me know. He has he given any timeline कि by what time it is going to be there so that I can remind him. एकदम वक्त बदल दिया, जज्बात बदल दिए। नहीं ना, वक्त बदला है ना जज्बात बदला है, सिर्फ क्या है कि थोड़ा सा मूड बदला है। और कोई कुछ कहना चाहेगा इस पे? कहना तो कह लो, फिर मैं इसको शुरू करता हूँ दोबारा से अपने टॉपिक को। So actually, this diagram was in RBI's report. What I have, I'm just showing you on the screen. This is actually part of a RBI report, a financial inclusion in India as an assessment, right? And this report start with very good quote given by Nelson Mandela, Franklin D. Roosevelt, Mahatma Gandhi, Charles Darwin. Poverty is the worst form of the violence. Right. So these quotes you can use when you are writing on poverty or you are going to write on financial inclusion. Right. So Gandhi's quote are always very good whenever even you are going to write an answer on any welfare related scheme, right? Any welfare related scheme you want to write and you want to highlight importance of that scheme, you can put this code there. In order to address this issue, government of India has started that scheme. In order to address the issue of financial inclusion, government must have to go for financial inclusion, because to reduce the poverty, the financial inclusion is one of the most important instrument, right? So these quotes, Nelson Mandela's quote here, it's little bit having a big length, but even Roosevelt's quote is also good, that the test of our progress is not whether we add more to abundance of those who have much. It is whether we have to provide enough for those who have too little. Right. So both quotes are very good, but Gandhi's quote is short and can be memorized easily. So you can have this quote in your mind. So they have talked about in this article. They have talked about what they have talked about: definition, extension to the financial inclusion, RB policy initiatives, and progress in the financial inclusion, stakeholder wise financial inclusion, and concluding in the way forward. Right. For all these things regarding definition, financial inclusion, all these things you already have, such kind of thing you already have in your course, right? For the way forward and conclusion part, you can read that, so it is going to help you to write an answer, right? So I will share this PDF with you, though already you have there too much material is available, but especially for writing an answer, this is going to be more helpful, especially the conclusion and way forward part and some quote. Fine. So they have defined, C. Rangarajan has defined, again Rangarajan is a very important person in this regard, regarding financial inclusion in order to address the poverty. Right. Even the Rangarajan committee was there, and Rangarajan committee has given certain recommendations to alleviate the poverty from India. And in that context, he emphasized on the role of what? Financial inclusion. So that's why RBI in his report they have mentioned this thing. And this figure I have already discussed with you. Why financial inclusion? I have already discussed with you in detail why financial inclusion is required. Fine. Extent to financial inclusion, to what extent India did the financial inclusion. For that, they have taken certain reports. Though, when you are going to write an answer, there is absolutely not necessary you have to bring any of them. It's completely fine if you are not able to present the facts given by them, right? But if any report, committee, commission in the last 6 months, means whenever is your exam, in last 5 to 6 months, any committee, commission has given the report and you are able to recall it at that point of time of writing an answer, then it is always going to be beneficial. But what NSSO 59th round or Government of India population census, such kind of the data, if you are not able to recall while writing a descriptive answer, it's not going to be very big deal at your level, right? At your level, it is not going to be very big deal. But if you are able to recall it, then it's good, right? Maybe it is going to create a good impression on the examiner, so that where you are not going to perform well, he may be going to be little bit more lenient than others. But it's not like that that is going to create an extraordinary effect if you have mentioned too many data, right? It's never create a very good kind of the impression. One important data is sufficient. For example, in this case, if you want to go with that, you can go with the population census data as a static data, plus any recent data issued by whom? Issued by a government or any prominent organization like World Bank. They have issued data on India's financial inclusion level. All these things, if they have given, then it's fine. Okay. So this is NSSO surveys. They have given this data and facts and all, but not required for you. RBI's working group. Again, RBI's working group, you can see that they have mentioned 2011's study. Again, not required. But yes, if RBI's any working paper in last 6 months, RBI has issued any working paper and it is quoted by governor or deputy governor, then maybe it is very effective when you are going to write a descriptive answer. Right. This is the World Bank Financial Access Survey. Right. They have given this detail of how many branches in India have all these data. But that again, it's a old data. Now, the RBI's financial policy initiatives like basic saving accounts, bank deposit scheme already mentioned in your already mentioned in your course. You can go for it. Relaxations of what? Simplified KYC norm, simplified branch authorization policy means if bank want to expand the branch of earlier, banks have to take the permission of whom? RBI. Without the RBI's permission, banks are not allowed to expand their branches. So RBI went for what? In order to go for financial inclusion, RBI has simplified the branch authorization policy. Compulsory requirement for opening a branch in unbanked village. So when RBI has started giving the license to the banks, new banks, RBI had put this as a one of the important condition. You first go to where? Unbanked villages, opening intermediate brick and mortar structure, right? Banking correspondence, such kind of the thing was introduced under intermediate and mortar structure. So that's why they have intermediate brick and mortar structure they have mentioned here. Public private sector banks have been advised to submit board approval 3 financial inclusion plan. So you have to provide the financial inclusion for upcoming financial year. So these kind of the initiatives, they are already detailedly mentioned in your course. That's why I'm not going for too much discussion in it. Financial inclusion plans relocate to the branch level. Financial literacy centers have to be there, right? Licensing of the new banks, discussion paper on the banking structure in India. So such kind of initiative is being taken by the RBI over the years, progress in the financial inclusion, number of branches opened. So all these data they have mentioned here, right? So that is not so important right now because that is an old data and recently RBI has not issued any data. If RBI is going to issue any data or working paper in the recent times, I will definitely provide you the extract of that data, right? So they provided that data, all the data is here, which is not very important, but yes, like schemes like Kisan credit card, right? So this is scheme you have to go through. It is not humanly possible for me to discuss all those schemes. You have to go through those schemes, right? General credit card issuance, number of KCCs. So they have given that data. What you have to do, you have to go through those schemes. Not too much data, but at least you must know that what is Kisan credit card, what is KCC, Kisan credit card, what are the basic things about the Kisan credit card. You have to go and read those one. ATM network, financial literacy initiative, financial tripod. The financial tripod, financial education, financial inclusion, financial stability. So you can expand the horizon of financial inclusion. Ki financial inclusion just not include the people, it is also strengthen the financial education. It also strengthen the people's financial stability. So financial inclusion is not an end in itself. Financial inclusion is not just an end in itself. What it means that it is not an end in itself. It means that ki with the financial inclusion, we have added the people in the banking system. Objective is accomplished? No. With that, people are going to have more financial education. And once you are having more financial education, then you can diversify what? Diversify your investments options. You can go for better financial stability because you are able to diversify your investments and savings. Fine. So you can go for the balanced growth kind of the fund where some amount is going to be on risk, whereas some amount is going to be invested in the government securities. So more products are going to be available to you so that you can get more financial stability. So financial inclusion always helpful to gain what? Financial education and financial stability. Now, the twist. Why financial literacy is important? Why financial literacy is important? So financial literacy is always going to help to increase the financial inclusion, and it always help to increase what? Financial stability. So maybe rather than going to ask a question on what? Financial inclusion, they can ask the question on financial literacy or financial education. Similarly, in the context of financial stability, see the question. In the context of financial stability, highlight the importance of financial inclusion. In the context of financial stability, highlight the role or importance of financial inclusion. So you have to write about what? You have to write about financial inclusion. But there you have to mention that financial inclusion provide the financial stability to the people. So, if you have this fundamental knowledge, right, rather than just a factual knowledge, then it is going to help you to crack the question, especially the descriptive question in the examination hall, right? Role of SHG, role of SHG, right? Microfinance institution I have not covered, but I have planned to discuss this microfinancial institutions in India separately, right? This part is still pending. uh, Developmental financial institutions. So developmental financial institutions, even where they are the developmental financial institutions, they are not able to reach, right? Where they are even not able to reach, then the role of microfinance institutions, MFIs, will came into the picture, right? Pros and cons of MFIs, I'm going to discuss once I will discuss the role of these development financial institutions. Okay. So they have discussed all these things in this paper, right? With the help of all this data and all. But the most important part in this is what they have whatever they have mentioned here, all these schemes and all, you already have in your crack grade B material. That's why I'm just moving it in the very fast pace. Fine. This part. Conclusion and way forward. When you have to conclude the answer, let me conclude the repeating what I have endeavored to convey about the assessment of the financial inclusion effort in our country. I begin with the brief introduction of the subject and provided two major definitions of the financial inclusion, thereby the important policy initiative of RBI and progress achieved, identified trends in the financial inclusion have been explained to assess. Right? He is trying to let you know what he tried in the above paper. Right? Then he mentioned that the report of Nachiket More committee, which is presented in the examining the entire gamut of the surrounding financial inclusion, further on the research community may like to go aspects of the financial inclusion which provide the valuable leads to the regulators and stakeholders concerned with the holistic financial inclusion at earliest. So, in the conclusion, when you are going to write an answer regarding financial inclusion, in the concluding remark, you have to highlight the importance of the technology and research for the purpose of making financial inclusion more. So you can highlight the role of technology and research for the purpose of financial inclusion. Right. So this is how we have to deal with the financial inclusion. Means what I have explained you about the financial inclusion. First, you have to put those things in your mind. Okay. Then read the material which is available there in the form of PDF. Right. Then analyze ki, okay, this is the financial inclusion. This is the purpose of the financial inclusion. And for the purpose of financial inclusion, we have this schemes in our country issued means put forward by the RBI or initiative of RBI or in the initiative of government of India. Right. Then at the end, you have to put those things in the mind ki why financial inclusion is so important for an economy. Right. And what are the important factors involved to make financial inclusion more inclusive in the nature. So by this way, you have to conclude the statement. So this is how you can write an answer on the financial inclusion part. Conclusion seems like to be open an article from Indian Express. No, mister, it's not an Indian Express open article. It's a report of Reserve Bank of India. Financial inclusion. It's a report by Reserve Bank of India. It's not an article. So you are mistaken. If you want the source, I'll share with the source also. Just give me a second. I have just shared the source means of this PDF. So it's not an Indian Express article. It's an RBI document. Okay. Okay, Rahul, no issues. So I hope things regarding things regarding uh, financial inclusion, social cost, PPP model, what I have discussed today are clear. विश्वास, नाउ यू आर चेंजिंग व्हाट? वक्त बदल दिया, जज्बात बदल दिए, नाउ यू आर डूइंग दिस थिंग. वक्त और जज्बात अभी आप बदल रहे हो. राइट. Trying to cover up the things. Any doubt? Any questions? Acha. Chalo. So beyond that, nothing is much in this topic. I'll again recommend you whatever the course material is available. Please read that one also. If you have still any doubt, you can come back again and I'll explain that doubt. No issues. Okay then. So shall I wind up this session or you have any question? If you have any question, you can ask me. Yesterday, people was asking about the defense and technology. So we have officially concluded this session. So if you want to know anything about defense related thing, you can ask me. I will explain. Are just share that link of PDF, Vidushi. I have just shared the link. Hmm. Yes, Rushali, I'll start. Okay then. So I'm winding up this session. See you tomorrow. Okay. Sir, there are many questions, but वक्त बदल जाएगा, जज्बात भी. No, no, अब तो मैंने वक्त बदल दिया. The official class is over. Official class is over. Now I'm free. I mean, I'm not under the burden कि I have to. I do not waste the time of the people who are here to take the live class, which is the official timing 8 to 10:30. So official timing is over. Now I'm in the mode. If you have any doubt, question, whatever you want to ask, you can ask. Okay, चलो. Then फिर good night. See you tomorrow at 8:30.